So we've gone through finding the surface area, the formula for finding the surface area of prisms. Prisms have two bases, and there's a congruent polygons in each of the bases. But now another measurement is the volume of a prism. And in general, a volume is a measurement of the amount that can be held on the inside of the object. Okay, so it would be considered in cubic units. Cubic units meaning inches cubed or centimeters cubed. It's a measure of basically the amount to hold something available on the inside of your prism. So we've already kind of talked about the cube. The cube is a prism where the bases are square, and if that's 1 inch and that's 1 inch, and the lateral edges are also 1 inch. So it's 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch. And that's going to be the basic unit, the cubic unit that we will use for volume. So the simplest space for figuring out volume is the right rectangular prism, also called the parallel pipette, or what we would think of as a box. So like a storage container, that's considered a box. And it is going to have 3 measurements. So if we were to look at the volume of this prism, this is a right rectangular prism. This is a right rectangular prism. My base is this rectangle, and I have a base on the top, and there would be a base on the bottom, and my lateral edge is its height. So I have 3 dimensions. The way to find the volume of this right rectangular prism is the length times the width times the height. So in this particular case, if we had that, if the length was 4 inches and the width was 3 inches and the height was 2 inches, and we're going to multiply those across. 4 times 3 is 12 times 2 is 24, and inches times inches times inches is inches cubed. Volume is always in cubic inches. So this is kind of a picture. If I had 4 units in my length direction and 3 units in my width direction and 2 units in my height direction, if I were to add up all of those little cubic units, there would be 24 of them. So this leads to just the general formula for finding the volume of a right rectangular prism. The volume is the length times the width times the height. The length of the base times the width of the base times the height, which is the distance between the 2 parallel polygons. And in order for this to work, the length, the width, and the height all have to be in the same units. You can't have 1 in feet and 1 in inches, or you can't have 2 in yards and 1 in feet. They all have to be in the same units so that they can be multiplied. So let's look at this example here. If they want us to find the volume of this box, and box is another word for right rectangular prism, the volume is going to be the length times the width times the height. Over here, what's my length? 1 foot. Over here, what's my width? 8 inches. And over here, what's my height? 10 inches. So I've got inches, inches, and feet. So before I go ahead and put in my values over here in my equation, I'd better change that feet units into inches. 1 foot is 12 inches. So I'm going to use 12 inches so that I have inches times inches times inches. So the volume of this box is going to be 12 inches times 8 inches times 10 inches. And when you multiply 12 times 10 times 8, you get 960. And inches times inches times inches is cubic inches. So when we're finding the volume of a box or a right rectangular prism, we have the volume equals the length times the width times the height. But if you notice, length times width, this is the area of the base. We happen to use the formula for the area of a rectangle because our base was a rectangle. In general, the equation for volume, we're going to put in uppercase B. That means that is going to be a calculation. This is the area of the base, which means if our base is a triangle, we'd better use 1/2 base times height. If our area is a regular polygon, we'd better use 1/2 apothem times perimeter. Okay, you need to use whatever equation you need to find the area of the base and then multiply it by the height of the prism. So in general, the volume of a right prism is the area of the base times the height. And to find the area of the base, it might be side squared if your base is a square. It might be 1/2 base times height if your base is a triangle. It's going to be 1/2 height times B1 plus B2 if your base is a trapezoid. Again, you're going to go back to what we learned in Chapter 8 on how to find the area of polygons.